though, huh? Because I did. Okay, there we go.
Boom. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Let me share my screen again.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So this is us. This is my favorite definition of astrology. I mean, in the most comical way possible,
Yeah.
but it's true, right? These energies do affect us, and astrology kind of can tell us more about why.
Hell yeah.
So I'm gonna try to move things around here. I decided to break the signs up by elements because it feels like a lot to just give you the full list of signs. So starting with fire, um, and we have things called modalities, right? And I've circled them down here, and it gives us a little bit more information about the type of energy we're dealing with each sign. So Aries, Leo, Sag, these are our fire signs. What they have in common. Lacey, do you want to give us an overview of fire signs?
Fire signs. You're only asking because I'm a double Aries. So
Maybe.
Aries is like quick, impulsive, fresh, new, kind of the baby of the zodiac because we're so reactionary, right? We have a lot of fire, a lot of passion, a lot of also a lot of anger management issues at times. Some more than others. But yeah, Aries is fresh, new. Think baby, early. Leo fixes that Aries, right? Aries starts, initiates, and then Leo is the sun. Leo keeps everything warm, right? Everything revolves around Leo, the king, right? The ruler, the brave lion, right? And Sagittarius is Jupiter ruled. It is optimism embodied, and it's the noble archer. It's half man, half beast, the archer. Think of like a jovial centaur, who likes to focus on one thing at a time, bah, hit it. One thing at a time, bah, hit it, right? Like it requires focus and it loves to get distracted, right? Because it's the mutable fire. It's like, yeah, we can go here or there, sure. Which do you prefer, right? Sagittarius also tends to be like humorous. There are a lot of comedians who have Sagittarius bits, but they're all very lively. Fire.
Fire.
Mhm.
Fire. And, I kind of like a GIF in here,
Yeah, it's so
just because
cute.
it's like, but it's kind of like a reminder that that element is a little bit unpredictable. You know what I mean? It's a little
Yes.
bit, you can learn a lot about these three signs from looking at kind of what a flame does, right? There's an energy to it, there's an unpredictability, kind of a
Right.
heat,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so these are fun, usual attention, energy type getting people, who maybe aren't always predictable but are very passionate, right?
Right. Right. Leo's
So
probably the more predictable, right? There's more of a constant. The sun is always the sun.
right,
Yeah.
right. Can't
The
always
other,
predict like how hot it's gonna get though, or
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So we are, just a quick rundown, gonna go by, check out the signs, right? Then we're gonna look at the planets, and then we're gonna look at the houses, and then at the end we have some charts to look at. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, because
What?
we did a
No.
synastry
Yeah.
reading
I
about
know.
them not too long ago,
Yeah.
and it was a
Popular.
lot of fun. So I felt like, given yesterday's win, it would be cool to go and look
Yeah.
at their synastry again.
Right.
Okay. So moving on to earth signs. Um, okay, so if overall fiery people can be very passionate and expressive, then earth people as a whole, you could imagine, are grounded and I would say like reliable, right? Like we really, it's
Judgy.
something you can No, seriously
I have a
though.
lot of Earth, so
Uh,
definitely, yeah.
yeah. I mean, one thing that we talk a lot about, especially in our readings, is the light and the shadow side of everything.
Yeah.
And so, given the high standards of Earth, it's very easy to be a little judgy and be like, why doesn't everybody else have high standards? Right.
Yeah.
There's kind of a light and shadow side to it, everything. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Taurus. Venus ruled goddess energy. It's the bull, it's slow, right? You could probably think of a few Tauruses that you know in
Yeah.
your life, right? They are also fixed, much like Leo, who we were just talking about.
Mhm.
Um,
Don't change.
Taurus,
Things grow. I want to plant a seed and let
oops.
it grow.
Taurus is also resource minded,
Mhm.
right? They're just kind of wired to think about, what kind of food or money or land or what do we have that we can work with, right? It's just kind of built in.
Mhm.
Um, right. And I think about it as kind of an earth goddess, as kind of abundant. And so there's the light and shadow side of this would be like you could see scarcity come up with Taurus, right? If they are very concerned about their resources. Versus I think in its natural lighter state, it's very abundant, right? The earth
Mhm.
is abundant, lots of resources. Um, and then we got Virgo. This is Mercury ruled, which makes it heady, makes it
Mm.
more,
Yeah.
um, it's more about mental energy and thought and communication. Virgo misses no details.
No.
And I could easily see how they would be a little judgy and be like, I caught every single word and detail of that lecture. What is your problem?
Yeah.
You know, how did you not memorize that as it came
Yeah.
out?
Virgo has an eye on health too, which is why they're that healer, right? Prescriptive. They want to have tangible, practical ways to help, right? I would like to prescribe you this thing to help you feel better, right? I want to be of use, right? They must feel of use. If they don't feel useful or maybe not needed, but if they don't feel like useful, like they're helping, then Virgos can feel anxious, a lot of high anxiety.
Well, that Mercury makes them, when Mercury comes in, we're talking excellent communication. The shadow side could be overthinking,
Yes.
right? So, yeah, it's very good at thinking, but can it think too much too? Yes, right? And that is the case with both Virgo and Gemini, who are both Mercury ruled. So, Mercury in your chart can also tell a lot about that, right? Like it's our communication and maybe how much we overthink. And then also, I've seen a lot of Mercury Uranus conjunctions that tell us about anxiety too, right? And so it's just interesting actually how much you could really glean from a chart.
Yeah.
um After that we have Capricorn.
Mhm.
This is Saturn ruled. um I have the goat because it's the greatest,
Of all
right,
time.
of all time.
Mhm.
um Capricorn doesn't know how to not work, right?
Mhm.
This kind of mountain goat mentality of like enjoying the climb.
Mhm.
You might meet Capricorns that will just never retire. It's not
Yeah.
weird for them, especially if they really like what they do, which Capricorn has kind of a natural entrepreneurial way about it. Um, yeah, they're good at manifesting, they're good at building empires, right? But then also there's something about Capricorn that is very humanitarian,
Mhm.
right? And like Lacey said about Aries, it's young in the
Mhm.
chart, right? By the time we're at Capricorn, we're very mature, right? We're
Right.
getting a lot closer to the end of the wheel. And this sign can kind of see how important it is to save the whole and maybe not just, singular. I think
Mhm.
of them as like Avengers or something, right? Capricorn is very much like save the planet,
Yeah.
even at my own expense.
Yeah.
So that could be a little bit of Capricorn's lighter side. The shadow side would be like workaholic and
Yeah.
unyielding,
And
maybe
why can't you work as hard as me? Right. Right. The shadow.
judgy about who can't climb as
Yes.
high or far or often.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Air. Let me tell you, it's hard to depict air in visuals because the whole point is that you can't see it, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
it represents mental energy in that way. So I went with like some foggy situations, some like leaves blowing, but it's air, right? The thing that these all have in common is like thought potential, right? Their ability to think about things and go and communicate those things, right? Air signs are
Yeah.
more inclined than the rest of us in terms of communication and mental energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if somebody has a chart that has very little air, they might feel a lot of things, water,
Right.
right? Express a lot of things, maybe if
Mm-hmm.
they have fire, but
Yeah.
actual words
Mm-hmm.
could be difficult if there's little air, right?
Right.
So we have Gemini. We talked about maybe an overthinker also,
Mm-hmm.
given that it is Mercury ruled.
Yeah.
Um,
More into like
Gemini's,
telling story and being very
yeah,
witty. Mm-hmm.
youthful, fun, very like gets bored easily, right? Gemini needs to be like
Yeah.
stimulated.
Yes.
Um, right. It can handle a lot of thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then sometimes it's kind of like bored with the people who can't keep up
Yes.
with those never ending thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But their job is to just learn and be
Mm-hmm.
curious, right? So they're
Yeah.
doing exactly what they're supposed to do if
And
they're that curious person, you know.
right. And I often think of like Gemini is one of those who gets the bad rap in the zodiac, right? For being, and it's because it's a sign of the twins. And twins, when they're born, are two separate people, even if they have similarities, two different people. So Gemini has the capacity to hold two things that seem opposing and hold them in their mind at the same time and not see them as binary, right? They can rearrange, right? They want, how does it work? Does it work this way, that way, this way, that way, right? Like it's got that curiosity of how you can mix and manage and how you can tell a story.
I could see almost too how you would how maybe a Gemini could be really great at gossip, right? Because
Great at
there would
gossip.
be
Yeah.
an ability to hold space for both sides, right? Because
Yes.
of twins and
And that story
you
could
know,
change, right? I'm sitting in front of you, and in front of you, I hate Taylor Swift. In front of this other person who loves Taylor Swift, maybe I love them, right? Like all air signs have sort of the capacity to be like, okay, what is this? What,
right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Libra is cardinal. It's Venus ruled. It's
Yeah.
goddess energy.
Mhm.
It cares about beauty and harmony and balance.
Makeup.
Um yes. Visuals, aesthetics, right? So it feels important for Libra energy to feel comfortable and feel like that their surroundings are beautiful,
Yes.
right?
Politeness matters. Manners
Yes.
matter.
But you'll meet these Libra types who can also be indecisive
Yeah.
because what matters more to them is that everybody else is happy. They
Yes.
want to keep that energy good.
And
But
yeah, if they
it's
want
cardinal
something, they
though.
will push. They'll push, 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 right? To try and see where the balance is. So sometimes there are some Libras that'll feel like super pushy. You're like, oh, I don't know. I thought this was supposed to be pleasant. Why are you so pushy? But they're looking for balance, right? That's what they're trying to get because to them, they're the opposite of Aries, where, the sun is like decisive, take action. And then in Libra, it's more like, well, what's the consensus? You know?
Yes, I have a Libra rising daughter
Yeah.
who can push every single boundary. She's also Sag, so it's like bigger, more,
Yeah.
please.
Mhm.
Jupiter ruled. She's very Jupiterian, but that Libra, yeah, it's charming.
So charming.
So it can generally push boundaries a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Especially if unchecked.
But it can, though, too. It also gets people who are normally like fixed to go, well, maybe, right? Because it's
Right.
initiative. Can there be
Well,
harmony made?
balance, right? Yeah.
Devil's advocate often is what a Libra.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we have Aquarius, right? And then again, if we're
S
going
sign.
younger to
Just kidding.
older, Team Aquarius, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
No, yeah, if we're going youngest to oldest, right, then Aquarius is up there with Capricorn in terms of humanitarian efforts, right? It cares a lot more about the bigger picture than it does any one person.
Mhm.
And that's where we get into, like Lacey was saying, opposites, right? So Aries and Libra are opposite. When we show you the wheel here in a few slides, you'll be able to see that better. But like the opposite of Aquarius is Leo. And Leo is meant to kind of focus on self, right? And be on a stage.
Mhm.
So Aquarius is the opposite in that it's meant to look a lot bigger, right?
Mhm.
It needs to look the whole theater or the whole city,
Yeah.
not just a single
Mhm.
stage. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so this we call this an alien or an astronaut.
The
Lacey
rebel.
has an Aquarius sun. I have an Aquarius moon. That's why we're Team Aquarius. Um, and we've astrology very much falls under this kind of Aquarius theme of humanitarian because it's a very connected, like it's pattern recognition, right?
Yeah.
It's the process, it's the what overlaps and what makes sense and how can we bring more people together and um that same kind of humanitarian effort you could kind of see that in astrology. And
Mhm.
so if I see a lot of Aquarius in a chart, I'll be like, are you an astrologer
Yeah.
though?
You could be. Yeah.
Do you want to be?
Yeah.
um and then last we got water, last but definitely not least.
Yeah.
Cancer. Lacey, do you want to talk about water?
Yeah. Cancer. Yeah, Cancer is moon ruled. Cancer's the first water sign. It's cardinal. It likes to use up whatever it is that is at its access. Think of raindrops, right? When rain is falling down quickly and then the water first falls on a mountain, like you can see them forming streams and then the water kind of connects to other water and then like that's how rivers and streams, it starts the river. Cancer goes, they tend to be great at business because they use up every resource that is available to them. They're also ruled by the moon, though, and the moon goes through phases. So one day you can have a Cancer moon. My sister and my brother, I lived with them, and they could definitely be moody at different times. At the time, I didn't know what mood I was going to get, but with Cancer moons, they need to feel cozy. So if your Cancer moons have, or if your Cancer sun is having a bad day, give them some cookies in a blanket.
Legit. I made cookies yesterday for my Cancer son partner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feed your Cancer sons cookies. And
Well,
tell them that you appreciate them too. That's another thing that I think Cancer moons suffer from. They'll nurture everyone else and then themselves sort of forgo the nurturing. So tell them you love them.
and they're moon ruled, right?
Yeah.
And so different phases. And then if you think about the way that water has tides and shifts and stuff, right? It kind of helps me understand mood swings with
Yes.
him better, right?
Yes.
Because I think about the way that water is kind of unpredictable um and quick sometimes too. Right? Those
Yes.
mood swings can really be like rapids and
Yeah.
then done. Right?
Right.
It's like a big body of water, all's forgotten. You can feel it,
Yeah.
but it's not
You know
visible
what?
anymore.
That's with all cardinal signs too, I'd say, right? Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, right? They a Libra, they all have a quickness, like quick to react and then kind of have a quick to get over.
Right?
Yeah.
Unlike Scorpio.
Yeah. Scorpio be fixed.
uh Yeah, Scorpio, think literally of a scorpion, right? Very private, protected,
Mhm.
right? The thing with Scorpio that I feel like we sometimes don't talk enough about is how loyal and deep they are,
Yeah.
right? The cleverness and the intelligence. Yes, obsessive
Yeah.
sometimes, right? Um, that is part of the deal. Well, I would say ambitious is a better word. I was going to
Yeah.
say competitive. I'd
Ambitious.
say
They
Aries is
like
probably more competitive.
measurements too, right? The statistics and measurements. Like I have yet to meet a Scorpio sun, lunar rising who does not look at statistics with what it is that they're doing in the world, you know?
Well, it's investigative and it's
Yeah.
also just kind of like hard truth, I guess, in a way too. Like statistics don't lie to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. But yeah, Scorpio needs to feel safe before they come out of their cave. If they do not feel safe and you make them come out and you make them have to be vulnerable if they're not ready, you will get stung and you asked for it in a way. You know, if they're not ready, you cannot push. They be fixed in that way, you know.
Yeah. Um,
They can
and then we
teach me a
got
thing or two about patience. Me and my Aries ass, impatient as fuck, right? Yeah.
right. Scorpio can move really slowly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think of it instead of as quicker running water, I think of it more as like a foggy lagoon, right?
Yeah.
Very like a moody and dark, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, because Scorpio does kind of have access to that darker side of things, right?
Yeah.
Death, rebirth, it's Pluto ruled. So um it's comfortable with kind of the transformation that happens when things die and then more things come from that, right?
Right.
The occult, magical things, intuition
Yeah.
is really strong in all water,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's all things felt.
Yeah, like if
Water
you've
is
ever walked into a room where two people have been fighting and like you didn't hear the fight, but you're seeing them, the vibe they're putting out, right? And you'll be like, oh, okay, I'm feeling something there, right? It's very water signs.
and sponges, right?
Mhm.
All of these waters can easily take in more water, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's so if you put a lot of cancers in a room together, right, they're all going to feel kind of each other in a way. They
Yeah.
might pick up on each other's grief or sadness, or like
Right. Yeah.
and it's very felt. All of these are very felt
Mhm.
um, types of placements. If fire is passion, earth is groundedness, air is communication, and water is
Intuition.
feelings, right?
Mhm.
Emotion. And that leads us to Pisces, right? Um, hopeless romantic mermaid.
Yeah. Yeah. Pisces, they tend to be artists and musicians, good with animals because they have that sort of intuitive connection. They tend to have sort of, they want to be heroes, right? They want to save, they want to come through in some way. And if they feel like they've let someone down, they have a strong misery, you know, like they can really be, they can be extra hard on themselves to the point where it can ruin their relationships, you know, when it's like, when it's too dark, too heavy, you know, because it's so
Ghosting.
hard.
But I guess
It is Jupiter ruled though, so beliefs tend to be important to both, you know, Pisces and Sag, the other Jupiter ruled. But yeah,
right.
Pisces, longing and music, right? If you ever see musicians working together and they're kind of moving their face around and they're moving with the, you know, music, that's Pisces vibing, you know.
Pisces is the last in the zodiac. So where we talk about Aries being the first,
Yeah.
this would be the last, the oldest, the wisest, right? Um, Pisces kind of understands that love can connect everything and everyone, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this transcendence kind of that Pisces needs in their life to be able to kind of, uh, you know, evolve or elevate beyond kind of the mundane stuff, right? How do we connect on the biggest level?
Right. And how do we escape the harshness? Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that also is kind of a bit of a quick walk through the wheel. It's a little bit out of order, but
all right.
So that would be the signs kind of broken down, right? Planets have their own energy as well. They rule different signs, so you'll see like personality traits that kind of cross over, right? But your sun has a personality, and then the sign that it's in has a personality, right? So you're kind of trying, and that can be sometimes a confusing
right.
Why astrology can be confusing when you first start is the nuance of when you combine this and this, right? How do you read all those layers together?
Right.
So that's what we're trying to do, is kind of break them down into more bite-sized pieces so that they kind of make sense as a whole. But any feedback you have is amazing, because we want people to understand astrology. So if something doesn't make sense, let us know.
We kind of went through
yeah, we went through a lot of this. But as you can see, it's kind of separated. There's personal planets, right? These are the ones that are a little bit closer to who we are, more descriptive. And then there's generational planets. These move much slower.
Yeah.
And we will be feeling these with a whole generation of people, right? And so less personal, but still very important and impactful in your chart.
Yes.
Right. Sun is something that's going to describe personality. Moon is going to describe emotions. Rising is kind of be more your physical body / soul. No big deal.
Yeah.
Mercury is communication. We talked about that. Venus is about love and connection. You could see how these are very personal, right? And then we start getting out a little further with Jupiter, right? But Jupiter is a wonderful planet to keep an eye on, right? Wealth, luck, joy, abundance. Who does not love Jupiter? Jupiter's only problem is that it just wants more, right?
Yeah.
So I've got the nodes here because I'm obsessed with North Node and South Node. It's my favorite. Lacey's favorite thing is sex and intimacy, and that's why we have a podcast called Astromanics, where we just talk about intimate, sexy things.
Not safe
often
for work,
we just
y'all.
talk,
not safe for
but
work.
There's kind of a it's a not safe for work podcast for sure. But my jam is more of this North Node, South Node. This has a lot to do with your karma, right? So where been there, done that would be South Node, right? I have kind of checked this box. I'm very comfortable here. Now in this life, North Node, these are the things that I have to lean into. And you get to kind of karmically up level when you choose to lean into North Node. So between North Node and Saturn, you can actually tell a lot about kind of a career or what could feel fulfilling as a line of work, because of these two. Give kind of clear direction in a way, right? It can be interpreted a million different ways, but they give you a lot of insight. And then these outer planets. Saturn is life's purpose. It's very much a structure oriented planet. Saturn return is kind of a big deal. If you haven't heard of that, that's around 29 and a half, 30, and then again at 60, right? And this is a transit when Saturn comes back where it was when you were born, right? So it's coming home and it wants to know like what you're doing. Like, are you going down the right path? Are you living a life that is meaningful to you, right? Are you living a life that is just there to impress somebody else? Saturn will blow that up.
Yeah.
So you'll hear of a lot of midlife crisis type thoughts and communications around 30, and really what it is kind of a redirection point for some people, right?
Mhm.
Knowing what Saturn is in your chart helps you kind of know what to lean into.
Mhm.
So big, heavy, important planet, Saturn. Um, Neptune, daydreamy, escapey. You know, this kind of adds a little bit of fog to wherever it shows up in your chart, right? It creates a little bit of mysticism and lack of clarity, maybe tendency to get distracted or want to kind of dissociate. Could be a lot of Neptune type themes. We see like drug addiction,
Mhm.
or substance abuse come a lot with like Pisces or Neptune, and there's an element of wanting to escape. And so there's a light and shadow. Some
Mhm.
escapism is okay,
Yeah.
right? In that sense, if you know kind
Right.
of your chart, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't demonize it for everybody, but
No, totally.
uh, if you have a Jupiter next to it, maybe you overindulge, right?
Yeah.
Uranus is awesome. It just comes in like a lightning bolt to different places of your life, and its whole purpose is to kind of not see it coming, right? It's innovation, it's inspiration, it's a shakeup.
Yeah. It's like futuristic, wherever it is in your chart is kind of tends to be more future forward thinking. And it also tends to be whatever sign and house it's in. It tends to be the part where we don't care what society thinks about that. We're going to be independent and do our own thing there.
Yeah, and if you're like me and you have it next to Saturn in your chart,
Yeah.
it could mean a lot of interruptions. Could
Yeah.
mean every time you go to try to work on something will inevitably
Right.
hop in,
Yeah.
right? And it kind of helps me to laugh at it, knowing that
Yeah.
I've got these two next to each other instead of getting frustrated, which is what I want to do when I get interrupted
Yes.
all the time, right? I'm like, I just want to focus.
I know. But then you
Um,
also have genius, right? Because Uranus is also genius. So you could also have like, oh shit, like an epiphany,
yes.
and then all of a sudden you're like, and the website's redone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and then Pluto is something you might have been hearing a lot about recently,
Mhm.
right? Pluto just made a big old move. Um, this is a slow moving,
Moved into the
very
country of
slow moving,
Aquarius. Yeah.
right? It was walking across country and it just made it to
Yeah.
Aquarius. It has spent 15 years in Capricorn, like
Mhm.
happily grounded in Capricorn,
Mhm.
and it just got unearthed
Yeah.
and thrown into space, right? The sky.
Yeah.
Um, Aquarius is innovative and futuristic, right? It is humanitarian and bigger picture. And so it's not as grounded. It's very much more
Mhm.
rebellious and idealistic and thought provoking. And so we were just talking about this earlier, how some earth signs in your life might feel a little shook up by this because Pluto, the planet of transformation, death, and rebirth, just left a comfy spot in Capricorn and moved into. And so, earth signs don't love the feeling of change, right? Everything kind of feels like an earthquake. And so, if they feel a little less grounded, it might be because of this kind of big change. And it's going to be there for
20
a
years.
while, 20
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, this is not anything quick or changing anytime soon, but it did just kind of pass that threshold. So we've been talking about it a lot.
Right.
And I think it's kind of fun. I love anything Age of Aquarius, right? When Saturn went into Aquarius, it's now in Pisces, but that was really fun and enlightening. And I think
Mhm.
there's kind of an air of enlightenment um,
Right.
with Aquarius. And so transformation and enlightenment, let's see what happens.
Mhm. Right.
Okay, so we have signs, planets, and then now houses. And this is, you can see why astrology is confusing at first.
Mhm.
Um, these also have a personality of one
Mhm.
ahead.
Yeah.
Um,
Hi, Uranus.
oh God, always. Yeah, so these are areas of life. And fun fact, if you've had an astrology reading and they really want your birth time, this is why. When your rising sign is determined by your exact birth time, right? And it changes very quickly, right? So if you're guessing that you were born at 6 a.m. and then you're actually born closer to 7, that'll change your rising quite a bit, right? And depending on where it's at in the sky, could mean the difference between a Pisces rising or an Aries rising, right? And it sets up the houses for the rest of your chart. So Lacey's, for example, is an Aries rising. So hers looks a lot like this chart setup, right? So her first house is Aries, her second house is Taurus, and we know this because of her birth time.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we push that so hard.
Yeah.
If you're ever wondering. The only other thing that moves as quick, I think about the moon. Moon moves every 2.5 days, but if you're catching it at the beginning or end,
Right.
your birth time can make a difference. Right. But that's usually the biggest. So if you don't have your birth time, which a lot of people don't, I cannot believe it, but like some hospitals, I guess, don't put birth times on there.
Yeah.
So that's tough, right? Luckily, there's still so much you can understand. And then there's also chart rectification where you can work backwards to figure
We do
out.
that. We do chart
It's a
rectification.
service, right? So what we do is do our best to kind of reconstruct based on you answering very specific type questions, right? And if we unlock that, we kind of get to see these houses, right? So what area of life does your sun fall into, right? What area of life does Jupiter, the planet of abundance and wealth, fall into? These are just things that extra layers of yourself that you can kind of get to know. So having it listed out here, right? It kind of goes from self all the way up to spirituality, right? We do we do a lot of readings for life coaches, and what ends up happening is we do work houses. So that would be like 6th house of routine, or the 2nd house of resources, 6th house of day-to-day routines, and 10th house of career. And by focusing on those 3, we can get a lot of information about what kinds of jobs, what type of day-to-day work, like what area might be the most compelling for you. When we look at love, right? Lacey, we look at what, first house?
Yeah,
Self.
love. When I always think of it as like how you struck a person's ego, right? For love, you know, like how
And
do
so,
they want to be talked to? What do they want you to notice about them? First house.
right.
Yeah.
And then other would be 7th house sitting directly across. So here's first house sitting across from that is other. This can tell you about times in your life when relationships are going to come up more. This can tell you a lot about like what makes you feel at home in a relationship, right? What's the ideal other?
Yeah. Or like what qualities the other might have. And it doesn't mean like, oh, if you're an Aries and that means you have to marry a Libra or anything like that, right?
No, right.
It's more like if you have planets in that 7th house, it can tell you why maybe you struggle to be in like marriage exclusively relationships or traditional relationships, right? It can tell you why either you like it or maybe you don't love it. You know, it can give you how you want to be in relation to others, what to work with.
And qualities that you might be attracted to, right? So Lacey, as an Aries, tends to feel balanced in certain types of Libra energy, right? Somebody is pushing a boundary or pushing to see where the limit is, and Lacey is very good, right, at being that Aries, fiery, kind of decisive, like leader cardinal, right? And there's a balance there that you can kind of see. And so it doesn't mean, yeah, she has to be with a
No.
Libra, but Libras will bring about some sort of balance to your Aries,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
that's, and then if you really want to know deeper about like sexy things, eighth house is really interesting to look at. This is merging. If you're thinking more, well, and that would be more, okay, so this is like a very deep, magical, merging, transformative place. So this is like when you're merging with another human being. Sex for fun, right?
Yeah.
Is more here in our fifth house. This would be more about dating. I have it
Mm-hmm.
here as creativity because you can only, well, no, can't only pick one word, but I didn't want to overwhelm the page
Right.
with a bazillion words. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot you can kind of understand about being in relationships here. Kind of spiritual leanings could kind of be an interesting thing to see what's in your chart. Yeah.
Also, maybe people who you have a harder time getting along with because it is the house of enemies, like ways in which you can be an enemy to yourself, or people who, yeah, it's also the house of enemies. It can give you indicators of why maybe you're having a hard time getting along effortlessly with another person.
Hmm. So we have 15 minutes left. Make sure to hit us with your questions. If you have any. I'm thinking that for the last 15, we'll just go over some of these charts. But definitely want to answer questions if you guys have them too.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want even more information on Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, we did do a whole podcast or YouTube around
YouTube.
it, right?
Yeah, Team Aquarius YouTube. You can go watch it there.
But the rundown, right? Okay, so one downfall in astrology is when we don't have access to that birth time, right? Like we're guessing, like somebody here we have like 12 a.m. put in, right? And then you'll see that a lot if the birth time is unknown. I didn't list his rising here because of that. We don't have an exact birth time, so we really can't pretend to know what that, rising sign is. But what we do know is he's definitely a Libra sun, definitely a Sag moon, Scorpio Venus, and Libra Mars, which is really interesting combo, right?
And then you can see where a sun, a person's awareness, and then Mars, the god of war, attacking, going after things. This person thinks in martial, right? Winning, attacking, right? With a team, Libra, right?
Right. And then and then with that kind of outburst that you were talking about, I didn't watch Super Bowl. I just kind of like heard that they won, and then also heard that he yelled at a ref. And I'm looking at the sun, Mars.
Yep.
And that makes sense to me. That would
Yeah.
be a spotlight on anger, right?
And Mercury on that day yesterday, Mercury was at 10 degrees Aquarius. So it was in an exact trine to his Mars. So literal angry speech communication. Yeah.
Yeah, totally makes sense. We got a Sag moon. This is probably a really good thing because I know that their relationship requires a lot of travel, right? A Sag moon would feel, at ease with that, would like their inner world, right? Their emotions would feel comforted by the element of travel and learning, and humor, right? I think Taylor Swift seems pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, her stuff's pretty comedic, right? Make fun of herself if nothing else. So
Yeah.
yeah. And so then if we look at her chart, yeah, so we got we know she has a Sag sun. So for her birth time, our Luna software has us put in as 5:17 a.m. It's not verified, If this is her actual birth time, that makes her a Scorpio rising, which is pretty cool because I'm also a Scorpio rising. However, I don't have a lot of faith that this is the exact right time, right?
Yeah.
It's not one of the ones that we know, right? So yeah,
I
so
had to
Sag
guess, like,
Sun, Sag
yeah.
Moon, right? How great.
Yes.
Cancer Moon,
Mm-hmm.
right? A nurture, that's a very like nurturing. It's also like a very moony moon. If you have a Cancer moon, you should definitely follow like moon cycles, right? You should definitely follow the tides almost, in a way of like what your inner world might feel like. Aquarius Venus, I think, is pretty interesting. That's kind of like drawn to a humanitarian,
Drawn to
right?
rebels.
Right.
Also is attracted to
Unconventional,
many body sizes, many kinds of humans.
right?
Venus and Aquarius. It is attracted to
Super
humanity.
open-minded or attracted
Yes.
to open-mindedness.
Intelligence as well is something that
Definitely.
Venus and Aquarius is
And
attracted.
humanitarianism, right? That would be
Mhm.
attractive to somebody who has an Aquarius Venus.
Yeah.
And then a Scorpio Mars. Um, I mean, you would have to have kind of a thick shell, maybe,
Yeah.
to do, right?
A Scorpio Mars also, I always feel kind of jealous of because health wise, they could eat whatever they want. They tend to not suffer from having to worry about weight gain and things like that. You know, like not a
This
thing.
act definitely lends to ambition,
Yeah.
right? Mars kind of tells us how we fight, right? So this would be a stingy more, right? And you kind of get that in the music, would probably be like
Right.
a sting, right?
Right.
Versus his chart was a Libra Mars, right? And it was next to his sun. So a Libra Mars is cardinal and it's air, right? And so the way that it would fight would probably be more yelling, right?
A Libra Mars also to do something or to move forward prefers to fight in relationship with people, not alone. Right. Like Libra always wants to do thing in relationship, you know?
Right, right. That's kind of its preferred like speed, right? Um, so because Valentine's Day is around the corner, we decided to do a synastry chart.
Yeah.
We do these all the time, but we don't usually do them in the crash course because this could seem maybe a little overwhelming, right? But the concept is cool, right? We're taking your chart and putting somebody else's over it.
It's
And then
great
we're
for
seeing
relationships. Great for relationships.
it's great for parents, it's great for
Totally.
siblings, it's great for romantic relationship, business partner. Me and Lacey overlap ours all the time.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of see how things interact potentially. So on the I think I actually meant to do
It's all right. I can
hers
see.
on the
Yeah.
inside because hers is the one that we have
A
a
time.
birth time for. But you can kind of see like how like what's near what, right?
Yeah.
Like what is interacting. We can see that like his north node is really close to her sun. Is that the right? No, this is transits.
Yeah, that's transits.
Oops. I did not put the right panel on here.
Okay. This
My
is interesting
apologies.
though. So I looked at the transits yesterday, a synastry in itself for Travis Kelsey when I was trying to figure out if the Chiefs would do well tomorrow, right? So I took a player's chart to see if he would have luck or fortune
That's true. And she
winning.
called it. She called who was
Yeah.
going to win based on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the same concept, I guess. Like where we would put another person's chart over it, we could also put what's currently happening in the sky, right? So that was this was yesterday's transits, which apparently I saved also.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I think they're like today or okay, yesterday's, but later. Yes. Aquarius, Venus, Aquarius, Mars. What up? Woo!
Nice. So yeah, do you relate to that humanitarian bit?
Oh, 10th house. Yeah.
Yeah. So in theory, right, the idea of synastry would be to put two natal charts together and see how they interact. This is actually probably more helpful in terms of a day-to-day thing, right? If you're trying to learn your own astrology, to put your transits over the top is one of the best ways to use astrology in terms of like a applicable day-to-day way, right? Yeah. So, but I could see where it would look overwhelming, right? So you have one chart on the inside, one chart on the outside, and that's kind of how that breaks down. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? We have like 5 minutes.
What do you think of Venus and Mars and Aquarius? Venus is the goddess of love and sensuality, but she's in a Saturn logical, so very logical about romance and sexual things. Because Mars is how we pursue the things that we want, the things that we desire. So when I think about it in the 10th house of career and legacy, first of all, sometimes Venus and Mars together, when they're conjunct in one sign, tend to be more scandalous because they're less afraid of Venus, sensual and Marsy themes intertwined. But it's yeah, it's like you want to fight with community and you're attracted to people. I want to fight with them and I love them. That's Venus and Mars, right? I both love and hate my career choices. I feel motivated by community, friendships, distance, logic, right? Those are the things that it makes me think of. What's your experience with your Venus Mars conjunction?
Well, and then right now, Aquarius season is like having a spotlight on our Aquarius bits, right? And so that would be.
Ooh, yeah. And Pluto's there too. That's like
Pluto.
You might get it, you might meet people who you're or communities that you feel obsessed with, that you're like, oh, what is that about?
I have next steps on here. So if you go to teamaquarius.com, you can do all of this, right? Readings, there's a link to our Astromanics podcast, although you could just type Astromanics into a podcast place. Moon mail, which is around the first of the month, usually like the day before the month starts. There's a kind of breakdown of where the moon is going to be moving. So if you have that Cancer moon, like we were talking about, moon mail is perfect because you can kind of see what's vibing. And then we have playlists over there too.
Also on our YouTube, Team Aquarius YouTube, when we're doing charts and stuff, we give examples of synastry charts. You can see those on there. If you're wanting to learn more about astrology in that way, you can see us talk about it.
Yeah. The YouTube is really fun.
Yeah.
We just did Eva Mendes and Ryan Gosling, and we're gonna do like a second one for that. I'm really excited. But all right, I think that's it. I'm gonna send out a replay tomorrow. So if you haven't signed up for our emails, again, go to teamaquarius.com. If you sign up for Moon Mail, that's our emails, right? And so you'll get this as a replay tomorrow if you do that. I don't think I have a way to send it out to like just through Eventbrite, right? That's deeper in Eventbrite than I actually am. So yeah, that's a way to get it. And then also we do these free trainings every month. So we encourage people to come back as many times as they need. All right.